So here's another example. It's number 2 in the class worksheet of using the shortcuts for triangle congruence. So let's take a look again. It says E is the midpoint of BD. Okay, so I got to mark E is the midpoint of BD, which is this segment right here. I got to be careful, so that means this. These are congruent. Maybe I'll write a note. This tells me BE is congruent to DE. And then it also tells me that AE is congruent to EC. Okay, so let's mark that. Okay, and that's the only information they gave us. But looking at the picture, we can tell that this angle, I'll call this 1, and this angle, and I'll call it 2, are congruent because they're vertical pairs. Okay, now looking at this, I have one side that's congruent to another, right? I have another side congruent to another, and there's an angle in between. That's the included angle. So the way I'm going to try to prove these triangles congruent is by using side angle side congruence. And we have an included angle because it's in the middle, not only in SAS, the statement right here, but it's also exactly in the middle of the two pairs of sides that are congruent, right? Okay, so let's get started. Let's write one of the givens. E is the midpoint of BD given, and I have to use that right away. I want to use the result of that, and the result of that is this. BE is congruent to DE. And again, this is one of the sides I need, right? So I'm going to write side. And the reason is a midpoint divides a segment into two congruent parts. All right, let's move on. 3, the other given, AE, is congruent to EC, and this is also given, and it's also one of the sides I need. All right, last one. 4, I need to talk about that angle, and because I labeled it 1, I'm going to say angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And why? They are vertical angles. So vertical angles are congruent. Now this is an angle I need. It's also in the middle, so I'm going to call it an included angle. Now the reason why I like to say that is even though I said one side's congruent, and then the next step I used another side's congruent, and thirdly I showed that the angles are congruent, the order of how I prove them doesn't tell me which congruence statement I'm using. Okay, these triangles are congruent. Triangle ABE is congruent to triangle CDE because of side angle side congruence. And again, you got to remember, when you look at these functions, these theorems, you have to see that who's the odd person out, right? I got 3, imagine I got 3 people, and the odd person out happens to be the angle. Okay, so where's that angle? Well, it's in between. Or the word some mathematicians will use is included. There's another one where, just inside example, if I have side, side, angle, now if I look at this angle, right, it's not in between. So it's non-included. Okay, but the proof basically stops at this line. Oops. And there we go. All right,